Fingers crossed. And then we will get started because I know, yeah, everybody wants to hear the good information. All right, I think we are live and good to go. Hello, Facebook world. And thank you for everybody who has joined here on Zoom. Just to reiterate who I am Lisa Haverly. I am an occupational therapist. I am the moderator of the Nature-Based Occupational Therapy and Related Professions Group, and also coordinator of the Nature Superhero Network, which is where this platform is, or that's the platform that this is being hosted on. And I am so excited to host another OT who has found her way to the nature-based world. And this is Alanna Davis, and she is from Canada, and she is doing nature-based work where she lives using fieldwork students, which I just think is awesome. But not just using them, but having them do the program planning and the implementation, which I have had students in the past who I have done the planning for, and they just support me in implementation more in recent years than early on in my nature camps, which I've been doing for 8 summers now. But I just think what a wonderful opportunity for fieldwork students to be a part of the entire process of using nature, planning the camp or the activity or doing the therapy, all the way to implementation and launching. I just think that's amazing opportunity for them. So I am going to welcome Alanna, and she is just going to kind of share her journey. And we are open to questions. You can put them in the chat if you are with us on the Zoom call, and I'm going to try to monitor on Facebook through my phone. So with that, thank you so much, Alanna, for being here and your time today and sharing your journey and your vision with us.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm so happy to be here and talk with, I don't know, a lot of folks in the US. You guys seem to be like way far more ahead in this whole nature OT stuff than we are, but we're coming along. We're coming up behind you and using all your good knowledge to lead us. So yeah, I guess you want me to start with my professional journey. So
yeah, if you would.
I'm a graduate with a master's in OT from Queen's, and that's a university up in Kingston, Ontario, Canada. And I have 16 years now under my belt. And I started in acute care, and I've kind of worked my way through the continuum. But along the way, I've had a lot of time spent with students, and that was always a real interest of mine and a passion. So you know, I did various roles. So student fieldwork coordinator. So I was coordinating placements in acute care, as well as often it was a requirement in teaching hospitals to take students. So just having that ability to be a mentor and a clinical fieldwork, a preceptor. And then just sort of immersing myself too in adult education and sort of all that was available to us around having students and how best to mentor them. And yeah, there was lots of stuff available. So I kind of poured myself into that. My experiences, I guess, then took me away from sort of the bedside and the clinical, and I went into more leadership roles. So I was able to do a lot of program development, implementation, and work on strategic goals in some of the acute care hospitals here in Toronto. So, and then I started to build my own family. So it turned my sort of career path back to the bedside. And I have a position now as a casual OT at a rehab hospital that's really close to my current home. So I can pick up shifts as I want there. But this enabled me to sort of start thinking about, what do I want to do and where do I want to take my passions? I guess at a certain point in your career, you start to feel really confident as an OT, and then you're able to sort of start thinking more creatively. So I guess what spawned the whole nature OT sort of pathway was my husband and I purchased a farm outside of the city of Toronto. So it's about a 2-hour drive away, and we spend our weekends there, and I'm up there in the summer with the kids. So the flexibility I have in my casual OT position allows me to sort of take that time in the summer. But then I was like, well, what can I do up here as an OT? So then I just started to think you know, the first summer I was up there with the kids and sort of always liked the camp kind of model, even though I had never really been a camper or a camp counselor. But we have 101 acres, so it's a big piece of land and lots of beautiful nature to it. So streams and ponds and rolling hills and stuff. So I sort of started to create something just in my head. It was just dreaming, really. And then I thought, how can I create sort of a center or a platform for students? So that was when I sort of took the idea, and I really only had a few notes jotted down, and I just took it initially just by email to one of the clinical fieldwork educators that I knew at University of Toronto. And I just kind of pitched it to her in an email. And she's like, this sounds amazing, and wanted to set up a time to chat it through a bit more. So and that was all like, I want to develop this. How can I get a student to develop it with me? Because at University of Toronto, they have a really unique placement opportunity for their students. And it's a little bit non-traditional because, as you know, probably even in the States and other countries, fieldwork placements are precious. And sometimes they're a challenge to get people to offer fieldwork placements. So at University of Toronto, they created something called the LEAP placement. And LEAP stands for Leadership, Emerging, Advocacy, and Program Development. So it's a non-traditional placement in the sense that a student could be doing some sort of a project that falls into any of those kind of categories. And that's at their level 3. So they are in their last year of the 2-year master's program. It's generally in the springtime. And it's sort of, that was on my sort of radar, and I knew about this placement. So I wanted to sort of pitch it to that because they could do the program development piece. So that's sort of how the whole nature camp model came to be. So I'll stop there and then let you sort of ask me some more questions.
And so just for our listeners out there, the way they do field works in Canada, I'm learning, is different. And so in the States, we have level 1 and level 2 field work. For level 2, you do 2 of those as your kind of final part of your programming. And in Canada, it's different. They have different levels, right? Could you just explain? So the program development is considered what level?
So that's in their last year. So they do, it seems to be the way they've set it up now is the students will do 2 placements in their first year, a Fieldwork 1 and a Fieldwork 2. Generally, Fieldwork 1 is more of a shadowing experience, and then Fieldwork 2, they're actually on site. And these placements are generally 6 to 8 weeks long. And then in year 2, so the final year of their 2-year program, they do Fieldwork 3, which is that LEAP placement. And then they do Fieldwork 4 in the final summer, right before they graduate. So there's the 4 and they progress through. Yeah.
Got it. And I should clarify, because I know in California, because I had a student from there, her level 2 was kind of in the middle of her program. So it does depend, but I'm not aware of anybody in the States that has more than level 1 and level 2 placements.
Okay.
But yeah, I just thought that was unique and I wasn't aware of that. So thanks for sharing that too. And so tell me, so now you actually implemented something with the student. So you took that model, they agreed to it, and now you've implemented it. And so how did that work then? How were you assigned a student? Did you get to kind of pick and choose? How did that process go?
So here, what you do is you have to submit a fieldwork placement offer, and your organization or the company or your business has to be registered with the university. So there's a bit of a legal contract and stuff that you're signing in order to be a preceptor and offer fieldwork placements. So that's sort of is the first few steps, is getting yourself signed up with the university. And then putting together a fieldwork offer. They give you a template. So it's really, just kind of what's your vision, like what are your expectations? What is it you want the student to accomplish? And then, other details like, do they need a car? Are they going to be driving anywhere? Where you're going to meet, sort of how it's going to play out. And the LEAP placement is actually 4 days a week. And I think it was for 8 weeks. And I wanted to make sure the student, so you can put certain requirements or, you know, sort of things that you'd recommend or would be really beneficial. So having some experience working with children or, you know, as a camp counselor or a lifeguard or some sort of previous experience is kind of helpful in putting together this. I was trying to get them to design this whole model. So it's a pretty automated system as far as I know when you're getting placed for your field work, but I feel like with COVID, it was more like they were selecting and matching the students more themselves. So, and then there's an opportunity that student reaches out to you right away and send you, I always ask for their resume and then have a little chat with them. But generally speaking, yeah, these students that are coming are well suited. It just seems the university has that. And then the other challenge that we kind of came up against was I'm based in Toronto, and each university in Ontario has a very well-defined catchment area. So they want to ensure that they have access to fieldwork placements within this geographical area. So I'm in Toronto, and that's where I kind of wanted the program development. I was doing it remotely. Obviously, I wasn't at the farm during the development piece, but the farm is actually in another catchment with another university. So we had to think of a unique way to make this fair. So they proposed a collaborative placement. Initially I was doing an offer to University of Toronto for a student and also University of Western Ontario for a student, because I did want 2 students. It was a big project to do a program development. And unfortunately with COVID, it ended up that I only could get 1 student. As Western, they just canceled all their placements. So I had 1 U of T student, and she took on this huge task of creating the program. So together we would meet virtually, and I just had her, prior to her starting the placement, she had to do a project for in their second year. They take like a program development type course, and it's about project management. And so they have to create a sort of timeline and do a bit of project management in one of their assignments. So she was initially able to do that before she even started the placement with me. So she interviewed me just to get a sense of what I was looking for. And then she was able to put together a bit of an outline of what the expectation would be during the placement on what she was going to be doing. So like, first off, she started with a needs assessment of the county, where the farm is, lit review, obviously on nature therapy. And then we just, jumped into stakeholder interviews. I knew a few people up there. Let's get their sort of perspective on what the issues are with children up in that area. And then, yeah, sort of pulling her into a lot more stuff like that, like template designing the website with me, creating intake forms, doing a think tank with a bunch of pediatric OTs so we could get some ideas around treatment activities and how we can translate them into nature, and a training manual and marketing. She did some blogging for me. She did a lot, and it was 4 days a week, and we just met on Zoom at least once a week, maybe twice a week. And I was doing the work with her concurrently. Like basically we were, just collaborating and working together. So that is the LEAP placement. So that was a lot of the program development. So out of that, we got our policies, our curriculum binder, everything was ready to go for the next placement. So the Fieldwork 4 placement is where I wanted to actually implement what Regan, my student, had done. So then I was preparing an offer for Fieldwork 4 for 2 students, one from Western and one from Toronto. And they would be the ones to be at the farm with me for the summer and run and actually implement the camp, and trial it out, pilot it, do 4 weeks of kids and a couple weeks of, so they would have an 8-week placement. So we do a couple weeks of orientation, 4 weeks of kiddos coming on site, and 2 weeks to just wrap it up and do a bit of data collection and research and stuff. So Unfortunately, with COVID, that didn't happen. So we've kind of pivoted a bit. So I can go into that, but it's not entirely student specific. But
Yeah.
at this point in time, I've put forward offers again now for this next academic year to do another LEAP placement, because I think there's always things I can branch off and further develop with this program. And then also I've put in for 2 students for the summer. So next summer to actually let's, fingers crossed we can go ahead with a
Right.
group model. So yeah, so that's kind of, that student, how it went about.
I had a question then. So with your program planning and all of that you did to kind of research your stakeholders, so who in the end who was your population then? How young, or what was the age range that you were hoping to target with your groups?
Yeah, so we looked at like 4 years old to 12 years old. So
Okay.
we kind of wanted them to be mobile. We didn't feel like we have the capacity to do any significant physical disability on the farm. So be mobile, be toilet trained, and then sort of that kind of is from that 4 years of age and up. Obviously, like there's some children that are above that 12 years old age, but they're functioning at a much lower age. So yeah, I think we're willing to kind of take it as a case by case basis and just reach out once we get the form submitted that somebody's interested, then we reach out and kind of
Yeah.
have a little chat with them. But yeah, that's the group that we're looking at right now.
Uh-huh. And then I know that, there's always some question about, so I do my nature camps or my nature groups, which I don't call necessarily occupational therapy. And then I do my private therapy. And that's usually either very small group or individual. Maybe they're also in the nature camp, but separate those two. Now, for what you were doing for program planning, were you assessing your participants and then doing like a pre and post assessment? Could you share a little bit about that too, please?
Yeah, so I had in the program development piece of it, I certainly wanted some assessment aspect because I knew the students coming on site for the summer to implement the program would require some assessment sort of experience during their placement, just as an educational kind of learning objective. So yeah, so we were trying to, part of what Regan did was looking at what kind of assessments were out there that would suit the needs of our children, be easy to implement out in nature, in a nature nook room or that kind of thing. So the hope, is to do a little assessment with each child. We've identified the PEGs, which is a perceived efficacy scale. So it's really, it's developed at McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario. And it's just a nice, easy one with flashcards, and the kids can kind of identify what areas of their occupations, their ADLs that they're having difficulty with. So we're going to look at that. I'd like to build, obviously starting a business, it's hard to get some of these larger assessments. So we're kind of starting with what are the most, easily accessible ones and stuff. So yeah, so the idea now we're doing nature groups here in the city. So we've pivoted a bit and see a need here in the city. So the assessment we're doing here in the city is the nature connectedness indexes. So we emailed those out to the parents before the kids started the 6-week group here in the city. And then we'll do like a pre and post of that. So we're seeing that is easy to kind of implement, and it's not so much assessment on the therapist's part in the forest, because it's just a bit harder to do in a group, obviously, setting.
Right.
Yeah.
And so with your assessment then, what are your kind of overall goals? So would you say they're the functional goals, or, and I'm a bit familiar with the nature connectedness scale, and that's really looking at your connection to nature, correct? And so is your overall kind of mission, do you have kind of an overall mission of what's your kind of, where are you headed with providing?
I guess, one thing I've learned, get it done, not perfect. And I think that's a quote from Laura Park Figaro that she mentioned in one of her podcasts. And that's kind of just been like, let's just try this, see if it works. So
I think
yeah,
I call it imperfect action, right?
yeah,
It's
so
an action than no action. Yeah.
exactly. So I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to answer your question. I guess I'm going to just start with the nature connectedness index and see if I can see if we can measure any change in the kids after they do a 6-week group here in the city. And, you know, every week we've just chosen a different theme. So as a group, we understand, like we do a good in-depth intake. So we understand what the needs are of the kids, and we've tried to group them based on their needs and their ages. And each of our groups have a couple play partners, so it's not so OT heavy. Your focus can be on, you know, the 3 or 4 that have OT needs, and we try to, so each week Regan and I are now picking a different theme, like what is it that they were really struggling with last week, or where could we see some learning being injected. So it is, yeah, it's interesting. Like group work is very new to me. So it's what, yeah, what can we do? It's hard, yeah, to do a specific goal, but we're
Right.
also educating the parents so much. Like last week was sensory. So this past Saturday was sensory in the woods. So we tried different games and just got them thinking about their senses. And yeah, so they're taking away a different kind of thing each week. But yeah,
Love that.
overall, I'm hoping their nature connectedness is just,
I
maybe we
love
change that. So
And I think, you know, for my groups that I do, and I have some professionals who support me with lots of experience. And though we're not doing OT, I mean, we know development so well, and we know how to create those kind of just right challenges, or we can see what the next step is. And so you're automatically kind of supporting, you know, that child to kind of move towards the best version of themselves, you know, whether that be supporting emotional regulation or just risk taking and physical development. So I think there's magic in that right there all by itself, as you have people that really know children and really know development and have that analytical mind to put that all together. And in nature, I think it's magical. But
yeah, like I think you're doing OT. Like I really think you need to just keep, because yeah, we look at things with such a different eye, and we can see so much and explain to parents, like doing this actually is helping A, B, and C. So like making that connection for them and just really providing that education and and just seeing like these kids developing and giving them the challenges out in nature. So that's, you know, that's what I've always been saying too to the students. Like we really have to take a step back and always make sure we're looking at it through an OT framework, or how do we make sure this is OT and not just a play-based group, like I don't know, like it's, the challenge is keeping it OT. And I feel like we're doing that. Like I feel like we really are. And I think we'll just have to market it in different ways, right? So
yes, for sure. Let's see. So we kind of talked about functional outcome, or how you see the children that you're servicing benefiting from this type of intervention. I'd like to ask a question about the feedback that you've gotten, like from Regan. Like, what was her feedback about this experience of program planning? And so she did the planning, and then you were going to have another group of students come in and do the implementation. So what was her feedback or her kind of experience with that? Did she give you any?
She was a wonderful student, and she was incredibly organized, just a really hard worker, really good self-initiative, and she enjoyed herself. She learned a lot. We learned a lot together. So, you know, obviously, like it was just really good positive feedback on all ends. You know, and I've kept in contact with her, and she's working for me now as a you know, independent contractor. So she's definitely interested in kind of keeping her foot in this, and I want her to, because she had such a important role in the development of it, and then we had to pivot and do things a little bit differently. And so she and I run the groups together now on Saturdays, and I don't have a student currently, but so she's enjoying it, and she's sort of with me alongside and seeing how it goes through. And then I have another student that's going to be starting very soon. She's my next LEAP placement student, so I've already been introduced to her, and she's going to come out for the next 2 Saturdays. And just, I said, we'll count this towards your placement hours, even though your placement doesn't start until the spring. But I think it's good for you to see this group and start to see what I'm talking about and what it is we've done here in the city. And basically, I think in the spring, there's going to be an opportunity for one student to work on the city planning development of these groups, and one student could work on further farm, the camp development model. So yeah, it's kind of,
That's awesome.
I think that it's a really, like, the nature therapy is so hot right now. And I think students are really interested in it. Like the amount that I've had reaching out to me, and they're so excited about it. And yeah, so I think that just in itself generates really good feedback from the students.
Yeah. So in the city, you're doing your work at city parks. Is that what you said? Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
So,
and that's working well. You haven't been met with any resistance from the city or concern?
I called the city initially, like obviously checking to see if we needed permits. And for the size of groups that we're taking out, they said we didn't. So, you know, Regan and I are both taking out like small groups. She might have, you know, 3 kids in her group and I've got 6 in mine, and we're in a ravine. And yeah, like we're just, you know, coming in with our backpacks. And I explained that to the city workers. I find there's so much inconsistency though here. Like, so yeah, I won't be surprised if I do come up with some challenges in the future, but as for now, it seems to be like small groups under 10 is what the COVID regulations are kind of promoting. So we're keeping within that, well within that. And yeah.
Awesome. I think we should do another live with our students that we've had to have them kind of share what the experience was like, because I think there are many students who are interested in doing this and would like to learn more. And so I think that would be helpful. So maybe we should do that too, Alanna. All right. So of course, this is really what you're supporting too for these students is kind of starting your own business, right? Being an entrepreneur, kind of seeing the opportunities, like you said, using your creativity, and then to not be fearful, right? Imperfect action and going for it if you have a dream and a vision. So if you had any business tips, because there always is kind of that hang up of, oh my gosh, I can't start a business, which, you know, I've been there too, and have learned, you know, a great deal along the way about what it means to have a business, maintain a business. But it's not impossible. And I never dreamed I would be a business owner. So it's possible, but in what you've learned so far, if you had any tips to share with our listeners about starting a business in nature, let us know what that would be.
So yeah, I'm very new to this still. So with only just a year under my belt, but I think that, yeah, I'm learning a lot about the marketing aspect of it. And it's really, word of mouth and using all your low-hanging fruit, like all the people that you know. And like in the groups that we're running right now, I'd say 75% of them are parents that I know and their kids, and they're trying it out and supporting me in this. So think of that, think of all these great people that you know, and you know, then the word just starts to travel. And so that's a really good, I think having a strong website is also very important. And I really just reached out to a friend who had a bit of knowledge. We put something together using Squarespace. There's wonderful platforms out there that really make things easy. And you can keep costs like pretty low. Like I didn't have to invest thousands of dollars into this. Like it sort of just kind of comes together. And being in nature, it's up to you how much you want to be bringing in or how much you just want to be really creative and use nature. So I think that that's great. And there's so many natural spots around us. So if you're able to access those, then that's sort of, it's free space for you to use. So you don't need to have a farm like I do. Like I'm doing this in the city and it's low overhead costs. So that's a great thing about it as well. I think it's nice if you have a casual position that you have that gives you some income and security. So thinking about that, you know, as you're starting a business, to have your foot somewhere else, just so you have the money coming in, and as you know, you build up and stuff. Because like, yeah, I think it's going to take a few years before I see like myself getting paid regularly. Like, I don't know much about this. Like, it's a whole new thing for me.
Right.
And I know my husband's he's in corporate banking, so he's like always asking me these questions about like, how much am I going to make? And I don't know, but it's like so much fun I'm having. And I think the other piece too that I just want to mention is whether you incorporate. So I don't know if that's an issue in the States or not, but you know, either you're working as an independent contractor. I just had to think of sort of the security, the insurance piece of it. So I did spend the money to incorporate my business. And so it is its own entity, like Davis Occupational Therapy, just because I thought as soon as working with children, I don't know, I just don't want to take any chances that something happens and
Right.
we risk losing our assets. So I really wanted it to be separate. And I think that was something I did. I started my like independent company in September, but then I incorporated this past June. So it might be something you think about just doing right from the get-go. I've heard people say it's a lot easier just to do that, but yeah, I kind of waited a bit and then I did it because it's a little bit of cash that you need to do that sort of thing. But
Right.
yeah, so that's
Yeah.
kind of my.
So I have an LLC. Is that what or it's maybe different? Just incorporated as the
Okay, yeah, so it's similar. So it's
liability business.
we have to do it through our College of Occupational Therapists in
Mhm.
Ontario, and now it's Davis Occupational Therapy Professional Corporation. So
Okay, got
yeah,
it.
but I don't have to add those. Yeah, it's kind of like those same little letters, but
Sure.
yeah.
It's a different process there.
Mhm.
All right, thank you for that. And I mean, there's much more on business that we could go into, but yeah, you can reach out with questions if you have specific questions for me too. I mean, I can share what I know as well. And so we are kind of nearing the end, and I don't know if anybody listening out there has any questions. I know we had people who had to pop off that were on Zoom with us because they had other things to go to. But if anybody has any questions, please let us know. Otherwise, is there anything else that you would like to share about using students? Because that's kind of was our focus today. Kind of what made it successful as far as what you did to provide. I know you worked alongside the students. You kind of had a framework for them to kind of follow from the needs assessment, the lit review, interviewing stakeholders. There was one other thing that you had said, but did you find that framework just because of what you learned in OT school, or how did you find that framework from how you do a program plan?
Yeah, I guess that's from like some previous positions I held where they were a lot of project management I was doing in the hospital at the sort of senior planner level. So, you know, I understood what you had to start with and how, you know, the kind of steps you had to move through. But Regan was also learning that in her curriculum in that course as well. And yeah, I think it just was a natural, like, think about what you need. I think you don't need all that knowledge. You just have to think about what's the best approach to this. What can a student do for you? It's a win-win situation. Like, using students just makes your program so interesting. Like, as long as you have a passion and you love mentoring and coaching, because it's that piece of it as well. But it's definitely something that makes it a little bit more accessible for other people who are signing their kids up, because you can keep your costs a little bit lower.
Right.
So it's more feasible for people. But, you know, it certainly helps with your business model, because these are students that are coming and doing work for you for free. And not to take advantage of them, you're providing them with a wonderful opportunity, because so many of them are coming off working as a camp counselor and doing fun things with kids, and then they do their OT, and then, you know, pediatrics is oftentimes one of the most popular things they want to go into, and then, you know, nature's really emerging. So I think that you can easily find people that will be so excited about your placement. And I think just having an idea in your head and just, can you run with this? Like, I have an idea for this group, or I want to try and do this. And students just like maybe need a little bit of a direction, and then they go for it and they see what's out there and what's happening. So I think that it's super fun. And, there's even some other benefits here. So I don't know if, in the province of Ontario, we even get a little bit of extra funding if you take a student. So each week you get a little stipend as well. So,
wow.
there's a little financial incentive on your part as a preceptor. But, and then recently, just last week, I had a college reach out to me. So college in the sense of, not at a university level, but at college level where they're doing OT assistant programs.
Okay.
And he reached out to me to see if I would be able to offer placements for OT assistants. And I'm like, yeah, like that's just what we're finding in nature is some of these groups of children, especially the younger ones, we need an extra set of hands. So I'm finding that you have an OT, but you may need like somebody else that you're hiring to just help, because some of the kids are younger and they're straggling behind. So it's like you need one person at the front of your hike and one person at the end of the hike. So now having access to OT assistants that need hours to accumulate, and they also want to do a little bit of project work too. So you could give them, hey, check this out for me, do a lit review. So yeah. So it's kind of, that's going to open some more doors for me if I can get some more students up there in the summer as extra hands. Then it's people I don't have to hire, so they're here. Yeah.
I just had 2 COTA assistant students, OTA assistant students this past summer, and an OTR student as well. And it was just wonderful. They did a wonderful job. And and so I think I'm on track to have more students this summer coming up and actually starting in January. So and I just think it's great. And I do love the mentor coaching piece of it. So I think if you are considering doing something in nature or already are, you should really think about how you can utilize and give the opportunity to fieldwork students to come on board and see how to do our work in a different setting and really probably a more meaningful setting, a more natural setting for students, for children. So, and that's kind of been always my plug as well. All right. Okay. We are probably going to wrap this up here shortly, Alanna. Thank you again so much. But I'd like to end with kind of either a favorite quote or something that inspires you, that keeps you kind of moving forward with taking on this business, this model, this mission, because we know it's not easy to be doing something brand new. But if you could share a little bit about that, that would be great.
I was reading, I just keep taking books out of the library on nature and forest schools and just trying to immerse myself into it. But Richard Louve's book, The Last Child in the Woods, I think I was listening to that by audio, but just, his reference to nature deficit disorder really struck me. And how our kids are just so different from previous generations. And I think that's what really keeps me going forward, is how do we sort of nurture them? How do we provide them with some really great opportunities to just be in nature and get away from these structured playgrounds and get into more unstructured space and see what they can do and how their minds are just, I love just seeing play. That's so interesting to me now. Pediatrics is new for me, right? Most of my care is in adult. So this is just so awesome to see kids' imaginations coming to life and getting them away from the tablet and the TV. And so I think that's really just driving me, because I just remember myself having such a wonderful childhood, living rurally and making just imagination and pretend play and stuff. So Richard Louve also says nature is a wilderness of sweets. So just trying to instill that in the kids, and they're so happy. And I see it already in the feedback from the parents, and it feels so good to be doing that. And I think it's really easy. We're just giving them something that they may not normally look for, and just how to open their eyes to it. So
I know one of my favorite stories is a camper who had a lot of fear coming to camp. Absolutely looked at a tree and was like, there's no way I'm climbing that tree. But by day 5, he was climbing the tree And even months later, if I see him in the community, he says, do you remember when I climbed that tree? So even in those moments, what you gave to them, you know, is not just a life skill, but really a sense of who they are, empowerment, confidence. So yeah, there'll be so many moments like that for you that you will have. Yeah, it makes me teary just thinking about it. But yeah, and I like Richard Louv's work as well. So thank you for sharing his quotes and his insight and perspective as well. All right, Alanna, any lasting words that you want to share? Otherwise, I'm just so grateful for you being here, sharing how it can work, yet another model that you can bring forth for students to get what you want to do started. And so thank you so much for being here and being a part of this movement, because I really think it is a movement. And I'm going to check Facebook to make sure I'm not missing any questions. I don't think I see any.
I just think there's such a great community too of us. Like,
yeah,
I don't know, I've only just found you all in the last like few weeks. So all of like the last few months, it seems, and it's incredible. Like, and it's so nice to share. And yeah, so I thank you for reaching out. And like, I think we can just learn so much from each other.
For sure. If not, we just support each other and, you know, bounce ideas off each other. Yeah. And it is just a wonderful network of people who are just the kindest people. So yeah, for sure. All right. Thank you so much, Alanna. Thanks everybody out there in Facebook world for watching. And again, maybe we'll bring our students on and have them share their perspective as well, because, you know my students gave me really positive feedback, but I just think if you could hear from them, that would be powerful and meaningful as well. So
absolutely.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Alanna.
Bye.